Hello everyone. I know I've been promising this for a while, but here we are, finally, doing a full Unity tutorial on how to effectively implement audio and sound design in the Unity engine. Before I get started, I want to take you through how I set up that project because I put that on GitHub and the link should be on the description below. You can go ahead and download this and follow along what I'm doing here. Everything that I'm using is just packages that I found on the Unity Asset Store. A lot of them are free, some of them are paid, and some of them I got through different discounts. I'll be mentioning the packages that I got in the description as well. So if you want to set up the same type of scene, you can do that, but you can also just download that project and get it set up on your own end. Now, when you open the project for the first time, it's probably not going to look like this because I like to have a different layout. So I'm just going to revert it back to the default layout so we can see how it looks like. And then I'm going to take you through how I set that up so you can follow along. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to default, and it probably would look something like this for you, maybe even like this or so. This is the default view of Unity. That's how it looks like when you just open it for the first time. So you have all your folders over on the left side, and then you have a bigger representation of the same thing here. And this is your project tab. You also have the console right here. Our console is almost like a receipt that prints what is happening. So it only prints what just happened. So if you did something in the editor and changed this, you might see a result or a message or an error coming out in the console. Many times people are afraid to read what is in the console. My best advice is just hit clear. Because again, this is like printing receipts for everything that you're doing. So sometimes it will print a receipt that there was an error, but you already fixed it, but it looks like there was already an error. So by just hitting clear, it will show you the newest problems that you have in your scene, if you have any. So we do have the project tab with two different windows here. One is showing you a vertical view and one showing you like more of a tile view. You can also change this through here to make it bigger or smaller. I like it smaller, like this much. It doesn't help much to see them big like this. The other thing that I like to do is I go to those three dots on the side, and instead of two columns, I reverted to one column. And the reason why I do this is because, again, I don't need to see the same information twice. So right now I'm only seeing one column and they're all nicely tagged here. I'm gonna take that project folder and I'm gonna move it all the way here. And the reason why I move it all the way here is because I want it close to my inspector. My inspector is everything that is going to be examined in my scene. All of my references in the scene are going to be in the inspector for every component that I'm looking at. So I want to keep it close. And the other thing that I want to keep close is the hierarchy, which is what I actually have in my actual project, almost like cooking. So when we're cooking, we have a fridge full of ingredients. That's going to be our project folder. It has everything you can ever think of to cook with. But my hierarchy is what I'm actually using for this recipe in particular. So my fridge can have a lot of things, but on my table, I'll only take few of the things out and not all of them. I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna move the hierarchy over here, and now I have my hierarchy, I have my project tab, and I have my inspector, and I have the console on the bottom to show me those receipts being printed and whatever I'm doing. We do see the scene view here. Those are the two last view that I forgot to talk about. So we have the scene view that is showing me what is actually actively happening in the scene and where they're placed in 3D space. And then I have the game view. And the game view is actually what the player is going to see when they're playing the game. If we're putting them one next to another, we can also do that. And then we can see the level itself while we're building it and the result of what the player is going to see. How do we know what the player is going to see? It's based on the camera. Here is the camera and here's the view of the camera. If I move it back or forward, right now it's connected to my player, so it's going to move with my player. But if I just pick only the camera, let's see, camera, control, camera, target, camera. Here's my camera, and it even shows me here, my little camera. I can move that, and then you can see that my view is gonna change based on where my camera is standing. Right now, my camera is attached to my little player here, and every time I'm moving the mouse, it's also gonna move that camera with it. Before we go any further, I do want us to go through the level and see how it feels like. So right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hit play, and there are gonna be some sounds that are associated with that little character. We're not gonna worry about them right now. What we're gonna be looking at is sounds for things that this character is interacting with. So if I hit play, we can see the game view, and we can see that when I'm moving my mouse, the camera above, if you look over here, is moving based on where I'm moving my mouse. So if I'm moving forward, I get to this like little fire. After the little fire, I have a little bird, and by the end of it, I have a radio. I can actually go through the radio because there are no collision associated with it, so it actually doesn't have the concept of this is a solid material that you shouldn't be going through, so you can actually walk through this. The bird, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can also go through the bird. And even through the fire. The nice thing about this asset, this is a free asset that I found, but what I like about this is, look at this. It actually paints his face in red when he gets close to the fire, and it's so cute. This is post-processing effect, and it's just adorable. So you can see my character walking around, and while I'm doing this, you can notice that the camera is kind of following me along. And I do have the sound for those like footsteps that he's making. It's not feet, but like the jumps that he's making. And we're gonna look at adding sounds to different things in the scene, and we're gonna ramp up the level over time. So if you want to follow along, this project is on GitHub. You can download this, and if you want to look at a scene with me, the scene that you want to open out of all the folders, you can see assets and scenes, and inside of scenes there's one called audio implementation live. That's the one that I'm working on right now, and the one that you want to open is start here audio implementation, and then you can just follow along everything that I'm doing here. So the only thing that you won't find in that folder is the audio files. I already downloaded some audio files, but unfortunately I can't push them up to Git because I don't have Git LFS set up. So just get your own sounds. That's the only thing that you need to find for this activity. Right now, in terms of sound, I have one sound for the bird, I have two sounds for the fire, and I have few sounds for the radio, actually two different songs for the radio to play, and we're gonna look at all of them. But let's start with the most simple sound implementation. We're gonna do that on the little fire. So for that, I don't need the game view anymore, so I can just take and put it right here, and I don't need the asset store either, so I can just tab it here and go back to my scene. Now I can see my scene, and I can actually move around and get closer to this little fire. There you go. There is a fire on it. We can't see it right now because it's a particle effect system that is nested under the hierarchy tree. So if I open the little hierarchy tree, I believe that I'll be able to find where this fire is. Here it is, fire yellow, and it can give us a little simulation in the editor of how it's going to look like if we want to. It can pause or it can stop. So this is just going to show us how that fire is going to look like eventually in the editor. But us as sound designer, we're not that worried about this. We are worried about this fire making sound. So the first thing that we need to do to make something emit sound is add a sound component to it. So if we take our yellow fire, we take the upper part of the hierarchy, we're gonna add a component, and our component is gonna be an audio source. So an audio source allows objects to emit sound from them. It's basically a container that keeps a file on it, and it can play that file. And let's see what kind of options I have in my audio source. The first thing that I have is an audio clip, and it's asking me what it's gonna play. So since I already have some files, I can just take and drag it in. The other option, instead of dragging it in, is pressing on this like little circle right here. And if I open this, then I have this like little window with all of the audio files that exist within my project. So it's basically going into my fridge and saying, here's everything you have. Which one would you like me to play here? What else do we have? We have mute, spatialize. I have that because I have a spatializer plugin in the project, but if you have a different project that doesn't have a spatializer plugin, it will not have that checkbox in. We have bypass effects. We currently don't have any effects, so we're not gonna worry about this. bypass listener effect, reverb zones. We have play on awake, which means the second that the game starts, that sound is gonna start playing. We have the option to put it on a loop. Because it's a fire sound, we probably want to put it on a loop, so let's just take that one. We have the priority that tells us how important that sound in your scene. Of course, we have volume, pitch, stereo panning left and right if we want to. Spatial blend is a little confusing. Firstly, because it's a slider and you can't really slide between different dimensions, but let me try to explain to you what that slider is. If you put the sound on 2D, it's gonna play from both of your speakers in the same loudness, kind of like you would listen to a song on Spotify. If you move it all the way to 3D, then that becomes an object-oriented sound. So that sound will be attached to a specific object, and the sound attenuation is gonna change and the panning is gonna change based on the distance from the listener. And the listener is usually either the camera or the character. The last thing that we have here is a reverb zone mix, and since right now we don't have any reverb zones, we're not going to worry about this. And we also have this 3D sound setting. So this thing is going to allow us to set attenuation curves on the sound. We're going to look at all of this in a second. So since we want that sound to come from the fire and not just play 2D everywhere in our scene, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 2D slider and move it all the way up to 3D. And now, actually, let's just play this. So right now it's set up to play on awake and it is looping. It's playing a fire sound. Let's just hear that sound actually. So it sounds like this. We set it up to repeat. That means that it's just gonna loop forever. Just gonna play a fire sound. So without further ado, let's just hit play and see how our fire sounds like. It should come from the direction of the sound. And it kinda is. So right now I'm hearing it more on my right side. And now I'm hearing it more on my left side. And now I should barely hear it. Like, I kind of hear it a little bit, but not as significantly. Now, this is not bad, actually. The problem is that I'm already really far away. Oh, I'm actually now falling through the floor. And eventually about here, I stopped hearing that sound. So let's look at what's actually going on and how it's attenuating it. If I look at my little fire, I see a little circle, a little sphere around it. And that sphere tells me that inside of that sphere, it's gonna play in full volume. And over time, it's gonna create an attenuation curve and it's gonna like take the volume down until we can't hear it anymore. Now, my minimum and maximum distance, my minimum distance is 1, and 1 in Unity means 1 meter. So this sphere is actually 1 meter. Maybe we want the full volume to be like here. So when the user is getting really close to that fire, like when I'm basically here, I can hear the fire in full volume because I'm so close to it that it should be very obvious that the fire is there. But when I move further out, like when I move over here or over there, I should barely hear the sound from that fire. So let's see, where is the maximum distance? I zoom out, and zoom out. This, I think, is the stupidest decision that Unity made ever, which is make the maximum distance, by default, 500. It's way too big. So we're gonna take that number down from 500 right here, and we're gonna put about 10. And then we're gonna zoom back in. Okay, so you see, this is way more realistic, and we're talking about 10 meters. That's a lot. That's really a lot. So let's try to play that now. So basically, outside of that sphere, I shouldn't be able to hear anything. Inside that sphere, like right here, I should hear the volume gradually going up. And inside the inside sphere, I should hear it in full volume. Now, just so you can see what's happening, I'm right now outside of the sphere and I'm still hearing it. And now let's try to just get closer. And if you look at the little, like, it's right above me, like right here, you can see the listener moving closer to the fire. And here it's already in full volume. So the full volume is working, but for some reason when I leave and get out of that sphere, I can still hear it. And the reason why I can still hear it is because that little curve that is like right above me here doesn't ever get to 0. So what we need to do is actually take it all the way down, like right here. And then now, outside of the sphere, I won't be able to hear anything. When I'm entering that sphere, should be able to hear a little bit. There it is. And over time, when I get closer, here I'm already in full volume. The problem in Unity is that the second that I hit stop on that game, it's gonna remove the curve that I created. Let's see that happen. Ta-da! And it's back to normal. It's because Unity doesn't save things that are happening on play. So now we're gonna go ahead and do it again. So I'm gonna take this one all the way down and kind of shape that curve a little bit better. So basically when the user is really far, we won't be able to hear anything. And as we're getting closer, over time, we're gonna hear more and more of that sound until we can hear full volume. Let's hear that now again. Nothing, nothing, nothing. A little bit more. And full volume. And here, it's already quiet again. So as I'm getting close to the fire, I can hear it. As I'm moving out, it goes away. Kind of pass by it if I want to. And here I'm gonna hear it a little bit because it's in my space. And of course you can adjust this like curves however you like to make it bigger or smaller, but the idea is that we can create those little spheres everywhere we want and create zones where the music changes or the environment changes or the loops are changing. By the way, I'm moving with WASD. Forgot to mention that. And in order to control the movement of the camera, I'm using my mouse. I'm not sure if that was clear. And this is step 1 in understanding how to implement sound effectively within Unity. This requires no code. It's a very simple, straightforward technique that you can already use for a lot of different environments and create a really dynamic type of a mix. The next step, we're going to be adding code and actually changing the sound over time or changing how it's going to be played using code. Don't worry, I'm with you. We're going to make it as simple as possible for you guys.